things that I wish I had known when I was a young sister. I learned the power of power. What it is, COPS Metro is a power organization. It is the ability to act, the ability to change, the ability to talk to city leaders, to institutional leaders, and tell them what is necessary for this town to be a great town, because COPS Metro can change it to be a great town. But it takes congregations, it takes individual strong leaders, trained leaders to do that.
We still need everyday, ordinary citizens to organize and do something about it. We have our whole educational system on the statewide level that needs to be addressed.
Entendía que la política era de que venía aquel señor y pues ay, no había cómo atenderlo, era el político. Y hoy no. Entendí con Belinda Fay que el político es mi servidor y yo soy su patrón. Fíjate la diferencia.
Neighborhood has benefited by just having the basic needs, but also have prepared the infrastructure for businesses to come in as well, creating jobs, creating a better standard of living, and more importantly, bringing dignity to our neighbors, our people, because they themselves have brought the changes to our community, and that's what we've done.
I remember going to a meeting, they're called money meetings, with one of the big banks in El Paso, and when I walked out of the meeting and getting funding for our organization, I even felt bigger and taller. So even though I'm small, I think just feeling the organization's power behind you, you feel much bigger.
Most important is building relationships and not being afraid to learn about other people. Because oftentimes, I'll come into a room with my side of the issue, and you sit down and listen to somebody's story. Funny how that changes your perspective. And what you start to see is, well, I can partner with that person. And that leads to what I would say is the second step. So if you've built relationships and you're starting to build trust with each other, combining those together gives you power.
That poverty truly is a crushing burden on the soul, but that with power, people overcome that, and they can make change, and they can overcome that burden, and they can become different people, and they do become different people.
COPS had done a lot of work on drainage projects, and we had a map in the office that had mapped out all these drainage projects and the various phases of them. If they were under study, they would be blue. If they were being if the plans were being drawn, they would be in yellow. So it was this very colorful map that was on the COPS wall. And I just come from Houston, where flooding was a big issue, and we had dealt with some drainage, and I kept looking at this map, and I kept thinking, there is something what is missing? There is something not right about this map. And then I realized that none of the drainage projects connected. So I took a group of COPS leaders to the city planning department, and we said, see this drainage project? Where does that go into? And they said, no place. And we said, Okay, well, what about this one? No place. And so the water just rains and it collects and it just sits there? Uh-huh. Why did you do that? Because cops ask us to. So then we said, okay, we're asking you to connect. We're asking you to give us a drainage plan for the city, which they did. But up until that point, the city did not even have a drainage plan. They were just doing it because cops told them to ask them to do it and demanded that they do it.
Well, I think that the lesson that I have learned is to do not be afraid to talk to the officials, to try to get people to speak up for their rights, and if they could get the force in numbers, they can effect a change in city government.
I bought land, of course cheap land, and there was no water, no electricity, nothing. And that upset me a lot, because here we are in the 20th century, I said, and we're living like this. So that got me mad, and the organization came more or less at that time. It was in 1987, and they asked us at the church, they said, do you want to learn about power? And it interested me, so I went to the meeting, and I was in the organization for many years, 25 years to be exact, and that interested me, but I lived in the colonia, so that was my main issue.
2 girls in their young age, were found dead. And anybody would remember that happened, and it's like they were about 12 years old or something. And it took about 2 months before they came out that it was connected with the cantina. Well, the first Wednesday that we announced it on Sunday, we're going to do a march there, and we had about 300 people, police was there to accompany us, etc. And we demanded that the cantina would be closed. The next day it was closed.
It took us 20 years because we had to ask for the funds every year. It cost $1 billion or so. But there's no more flooding in the south side and in the west side.
Area there throughout the 30-odd years has been impacted very positively because of the work that we have done there. But throughout history of this organization, I've seen my parents, along with a lot of the other founding members, develop great relationships on a local level, on a state level, on a federal level.
And that can only be done by a citizenry that is politically astute, that understands public discourse, that understands the concept of compromise, and in all of those environments, you get things done where everyone benefits.
How do we learn how to organize? Well, what does that mean? Well, organizing means looking for leaders, looking for people like yourselves. Organizing means understanding the iron rule. Never, ever do for anyone what he or she can do for themselves. Organizing means understanding that power comes in 2 forms. Unilateral, top-down, expert-driven. Power comes from organized money, but power also comes from organized people with their institutions.